if a tornado is coming, Michael?
Yeah, the radio in my conference room keeps going off. So
Trying to get the weather radar on my other screen here.
Weatherman. For our next weather update, let's throw it over to Paul.
Lori is also monitoring for us. Yeah, the radio in my conference room keeps going off. So
Trying to get the weather radar on my other screen. That's weird.
All right, Paul or Phil is saying his link isn't working, so I'm gonna copy this and send it to him if you give me a minute.
Mhm.
TV. There we go. I sent that link to Phil, so he should be coming.
Okay, let's give him a minute. I'm
There.
sure people.
Here he comes.
Hello.
There he is.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'm gonna start recording and we can start the meeting.
Okay, he's going to tell me whenever you're ready.
We're ready.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our May 18th Board of Education meeting. Glad you're joining us tonight on YouTube or on the Zoom Pro platform that we're streaming from tonight. I know we've had a couple of different platforms that we've used, but we're on the Zoom Pro platform tonight. Before we call the meeting to order, I do want to take a moment to just address something that several board members we've talked about over the last couple of days, and that is this topic of community engagement, and particularly the issue of public participation during our board meetings during this virtual time. You know, we're at the end of the school year. That's a good thing. Graduation Saturday. Next week, kids are going to be coming on campus, not getting out of their cars, but coming on campus to drop off supplies and pick up stuff that they've left here. And the questions are already starting to roll in about what's summer going to look like, what are we doing with the buildings? What are we going to be doing education-wise? Are our kids going to be back? Are we going to have athletics? And then there are many other topics that people in the community have voiced to one of us or several of us on several occasions. And normally when we would have in-person board meetings, there was always an opportunity for public participation for people to come and stand before us and to make their voice heard. As we've moved into this new reality of virtual board meetings, on advice of legal counsel, many districts in Central Ohio and around the state made the choice to temporarily suspend public participation during these meetings, just technology reasons and any other reasons, but that's what we did. However, we still asked and still do ask that if you have a question, a concern, a comment, you can email the administration. You can email or call any one of us board members. Our emails are on the NAPLS website, and we are always here ready to listen and to answer your questions. Your participation in the process is very important to us. So I wanted to remind you that you have that opportunity. We're going to look for ways to make this better in the future. Our hope is that by the end of the month, we'll hear from the administration, the governor, and maybe be back to in-person meetings as early as June. And then we'll be back to in-person public participation. But in the meantime, and all the time, frankly, if you have a question, if you have a concern, if you have a comment, all five of us and the administration are available to you. We want to hear from you. We want to know what your concerns are. And so I just wanted to make sure that everyone who's watching tonight knows that you have that opportunity. Until then, we'll do it that way, and hopefully someday soon we'll be able to do it in person. With that, I'll call the meeting to order and request a roll call, please.
Becky's on mute.
Yeah, Becky, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Mr. Newmoff,
Here.
Mr. Bush,
Here.
Ms. Kalinowski,
Here.
Vice President Darrow,
Here.
President McClelland.
Here. First item up tonight on the agenda is approval of board minutes. So members of the board had the opportunity to review our previous meeting minutes from April 13th, our work session, and our April 27th regular meeting. So could I have a motion to approve without any changes, motion to approve those board minutes?
So moved. Second.
Mr. Darrow, a second by Mr. Bush. Roll call, please.
Vice President Darrow,
Yes.
Mr. Bush,
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff,
Yes.
Kalinowski,
Yes.
President McClelland.
Yes. Now to tonight's meeting agenda. Any additions or corrections to the agenda, Mr. Sawyers?
President McClellan, we're requesting that the executive session be removed from tonight's agenda. It's no longer necessary for preparations for negotiations.
Okay, with that correction to the agenda, could I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Kalinowski, and a second by Mr. Newmoff. Roll call, please.
Ms. Kalinowski,
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff,
Yes.
Mr. Bush,
Yes.
Vice President Darrow,
Yes.
President McClelland.
Yes. Communications to the board, Mr. Sawyers.
Thank you, President McClellan, members of the Board of Education. I'd like to start this afternoon with some updates regarding varied topics that have come in over the course of the last couple of weeks, just to provide updates to our families and really our community at large. I'm going to start with the celebration of the class of 2020 and the upcoming graduation ceremony that President McClellan previously mentioned. So last Friday was officially the last day of regular instruction and remote learning requirements for our seniors that will graduate as the class of 2020. Our senior team, our teachers, and our high school administrators continue to work actively to get a few remaining things, loose ends tied up this week so that we can actually commence 384 students on Saturday through our virtual commencement exercise, as well as our celebration that will happen that I'll talk about in just a second. So tomorrow, let's just kind of go chronologically through the week. Tomorrow is a very important day in our school district for our seniors. During the day, we will actually host a drive-through at New Albany High School at scheduled times for seniors to return their textbooks, their library books, and other things that belong to the school district. We'll also picking up their senior cords for graduation ceremony and their stoles. They have arrived from Joston. So we were very happy that that did come. We've been in contact with several other school districts that their stoles and cords have been delayed based upon manufacturer closing. Unfortunately for us, our students will actually receive those tomorrow as part of their pickup drop-off process for the class of 2020. In addition to that, we're also presenting our students tomorrow with all the social distancing protocols that are necessary pursuant to the public health orders. There are awards that actually would have been presented in person tomorrow evening at the Celebration of Excellence. So our high school guidance counselors, school counselors, as well as our high school secretaries and high school administrative team and members of the senior team have put together a virtual ceremony for tomorrow evening that will begin at 6:30. It will be live streamed through video through our YouTube channel. So it won't be live, but it'll be through our YouTube channel on the district website. And it will also be sent out to all students clearly at the high school to have access to celebrate the class of 2020. But tomorrow evening at 6:30 is our celebration of excellence, and that will be hosted virtually. Saturday, of course, is graduation. And as we look towards Saturday and the celebration of the class of 2020, our virtual commencement exercise will go as scheduled at 10 a.m., our normal graduation time that was actually published. But this year will be virtual. There will be a link on our website and will also be shared publicly too. Again, it'll be viewable through the YouTube channel for the school district. The graduation drive-through ceremony will officially begin at 12:30. It's alphabetical by last name unless otherwise notified to a student or his or her family. We're calling it a red carpet affair, and I'm not going to get into all the details associated to what that means. Kids will discover that as graduates this Saturday, specifically as the class of 2020. But in essence, each senior will arrive in one vehicle with his or her family. They will travel through specific stations at the intermediate school parking lot to arrive to the red carpet affair, where we will actually honor them as a graduate from our school district. We will present them with their diploma. We will capture their photo specifically for graduation purposes and present them a flower. And all of this will happen both through photography. So we have photographers that are going to do the graduation pictures, but also as a live stream event. So we actually will live stream the graduation ceremony for pickup and awarding of diplomas through the YouTube channel on Saturday as well. So additional information will be available on our website, as well as published to clearly all New Albany High School seniors, families, friends, so that everyone that can't come to the virtual ceremony in the morning can watch it, but then again for the drive-through ceremony to actually see the physical awarding of the diploma, be able to see it through live stream, so families can plan accordingly for the other family members, given the fact that they're limited to one vehicle per graduate. And we're excited that that's possible to do through our school district with everything the high school administrative team and the senior team and our classroom teachers have put together with the district administration to celebrate our kids. So Saturday is going to be a very special day. We look forward to celebrating the class of 2020. It's supposed to be 78 to 80 degrees and sunny. So I'm hoping that that holds true in the meteorologist's forecast, and actually turns out to be a great day for our kids with a few surprises along the way. For all of our other students in grades pre-K through 11, the last day for remote learning is this Friday, May 22nd. We're thankful to our students, our parents, our guardians, classroom teachers and administrators, and really our entire staff for their tremendous efforts to date navigating the remote learning requirements due to COVID-19. The teaching and learning has evolved during phases of our remote learning. So this was also a learning opportunity for us as a school district, as well as the faculty and staff, to understand what works, doesn't work, and how we can improve specifically to meet the needs of our students as part of our expectations for continuous improvement as we look towards the future. All year-end celebrations for kids are continuing as much as possible virtually. So there's several things that are scheduled this week by specific building or grade level. An example today was Carnival of the Animals, which for our first grade families that have gone through this, they know Carnival of the Animals is a tremendous celebration within first grade for theatrical performance that normally take place on the McCoy stage. This morning, as an example, Mrs. Toplak's first graders were dancing fossils and doing poetry readings virtually. So it was actually really, really cute. It all happened through technology, and we have more first grade classrooms scheduled throughout the rest of the week. So we are trying to create some normalcy for the kids and their traditional rites of passage that normally would happen as much as we possibly can as we look towards the last day of school officially being Friday. There was reference to student belongings. We've had several parent inquiries regarding how do I get X from my student's locker, or Susie left X in a classroom, how can I get it back? We've asked parents to remain patient. So that information was released today by building principals in cooperation with Mr. Hood and the building principals. They've actually created a student belongings drive-through event that will take place on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, May 26th, 27th, or 28th. To specifically return library books, textbooks, some technology devices in specific grade levels, while also picking up the remaining student belongings that were gathered by faculty and staff from classrooms or lockers throughout the school campus. Detailed instructions for each building have been provided by building principals. So I would direct our families just to look for your communication from your building principal. It will tell you how this all works for you to actually come back to the school campus alphabetically in a drive-through affair to collect belongings from each school building for which you have students enrolled. So again, that'll take place on May 26th through May 28th. And I want to thank Mr. Hood, the building principals or building administrators, and classroom teachers and custodial staff who've done a tremendous job gathering all the student belongings that remained after we departed from school in March. Mr. McClelland mentioned at the beginning of the meeting looking towards 2020 and 21. So clearly we're getting lots and lots of questions regarding the start of the next school year. When will detailed information be available? Will students come to school every day? Will there be a required rotation? Which kids come on which day? Will transportation be provided? Will you be able to serve lunches? All of those are absolutely wonderful questions, but they're very much yet to be determined. We are anxiously awaiting updated information from both the Ohio Department of Health and the Ohio Department of Education. Had conversations with a few parents in the last week. We were surprised to find out that we, as the local school district, specifically meaning New Albany Plain Local Schools, cannot make the decision for ourselves for August. We are currently under a medical order issued by Dr. Amy Acton from the Ohio Department of Health that closes our school district through June 30th, 2020. And it physically closes all of our school buildings, facilities, and really school as a whole. We are waiting for that to get updated. We anticipate there will be changes with the lifting potentially of the stay-at-home order on May 29th, that'll start other things happening throughout the state of Ohio as we get into summer. So as soon as we have updated information, clearly we will continue to provide it. We are monitoring all resources from the state, from the Ohio Department of Health, from the Ohio Department of Education, from the administration, specifically the governor's office, as well as the CDC, for whatever information is put out that becomes available for K through 12 schools, or in our case, pre-K through 12 schools. In the interim of that information, we need to continue to learn from our current experience. So we had lots of parent participation in a previous survey related to remote learning specifically. Nearly 1,400 respondents gave us direct feedback on what was working, what was not working, and how we can improve this last phase that we're currently completing related to remote learning. As we look towards June, I've engaged the PTOs in our school district and have asked them to form focus groups at each building level to solicit direct parent participation and helping us understand not only what changed and worked well during the third phase of remote learning, but also look towards 2020 and 21 and the start of the new school year in August, and understand from the parent perspective, what are your questions? What would be valuable information for you to have? What concerns, if any, do you have? Are you fearful of your kids coming back to the school campus? Are you ready for your kids to come back to the school campus? We talked to a lot of people, and I'm going to tell you there's a lot of different perspectives that are out there. And again, while we have to adhere to any state or medical orders that are issued because we are a public school district, we also want to be conscious of the fact that if we are able to open, which we sincerely hope that we are in August, under what circumstances, and what information would be most valuable to our families. So that parent engagement will happen most likely in early June through our PTOs. And based upon that, we'll synthesize the data that's collected to determine our next steps in a broader base to help us inform our steps for what we are able to do based upon anticipated information we expect to receive from the state. I do believe that will be out sometime in June because of all the planning that will be required currently in our conversations. So I have weekly superintendent video conference calls with different organizations throughout the state, both from superintendents, health departments, the state level and the local level, because we also participate with Franklin County. So if the medical order that comes out from a state level defers back to the local level in partnership with your county health department, we have a very good working relationship with obviously the Franklin County Public Health Commissioner, because he's an active member of the New Albany COVID-19 task force that we created. So again, it's a waiting game. I know everyone wants answers tomorrow. In the interim of getting that guidance, we as an administrative team are actively working on different scenarios to understand what might be possible under what conditions, based upon whatever the state guidance will come out to basically say. Again, we do anticipate guidance sometime in June for August, and we sincerely hope that we will be able to reopen school pending information on mandatory requirements for class size, social distancing requirements on the school campus, specific impact to student activities or sports, because everyone wants to know if we're going to have fall sports, if remote learning has to continue and under what conditions, and so on. So I really appreciate all the parent reach out that I've received, many emails, some phone calls, asking specific questions. And unfortunately, I have to tell you, currently, I just tell you, we're in a waiting game. So I'm waiting for the additional information to come from the state to tell us what we specifically are or are not able to do. And then we will execute plans based upon that. But in the interim of that, knowing that there's a possibility of multiple scenarios, we are going to solicit some parent input and feedback into that process to try to help us understand it once, and I say, the guardrails are issued by ODE, the Ohio Department of Education, or the Ohio Department of Health, or the administration through the governor's office. So when that guidance becomes available, we will act accordingly. Please know we absolutely, positively want the kids back on the school campus in the safest way possible. This campus is not the same without 5,052 kids running around every single day. They bring the campus to life because that's what we do for school. We also want to recognize the clear support that parents have engaged in during this remote planning requirement and the remote learning requirements at your home. We understand the additional anxiety and stress and mental health support needs that might have been required. And we thank the families who directly reached out to the school district for those supports, and remind all families in our school district that those supports remain actively available, even through the summertime. So if there are specific needs associated to your child, please make sure you contact the building principal or a member of the administrative team, the school counselor, or the mental health specialist, so we can make sure that we provide those supports as we look towards what might be possible during the summer. We do want to remain as responsive as possible. We thank everyone for their collaboration as we look towards the end of the official 2019-20 school year on Friday for students. And then our faculty and staff will continue next week as we go through the processes necessary to return student belongings, while also conducting professional development for teachers in preparation for options to support what might be necessary come August. So we are planning every day for what may or may not happen in August. We absolutely would like everything to be normal and have kids return to school full time every single day. We just don't know what the rules of that new normal will be. So again, we thank everyone for their cooperation, collaboration, kindness, and support as we've gone through this process. And we hope everyone will have a wonderful summer break. It's clearly been earned based upon what's happened over the course of really the last 9 weeks as we've gone through this process to understand the future of what it means for 2020 and 21. So take some time to relax, rejuvenate. You don't want to hear me say do some reading and do some math, but we'll remind you of that as summer comes along. But for right now, people really just need to unplug and get away from technology and let the remote learning stop on Friday for underclassmen and allow us to prepare for what's going to come next as we get additional information from the state. Those are my general updates for this evening. Are there any questions about anything I said before we shift topics?
Michael, can you just plug the car parade too for seniors?
Sure. Actually, thanks for the reminder. I skipped that. So on Saturday afternoon, in cooperation with the city and the township, we've actually actively advertised that we want to do a 2020 celebration. We anticipate that the drive-through diploma awarding ceremony should be over around 3:30 to 3:45. We've encouraged students and families to decorate cars and actually celebrate seniors within their neighborhoods. We traditionally had a clap out where all the families, siblings, parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles got to come to the high school for the quad to clap out the senior class. We can't do a traditional clap out because of the medical order and social distancing requirements. So we're encouraging our entire community to do a neighborhood clap out while doing a drive-through event. So we've taken our drive-through concept and applied it to the neighborhood. We're hoping our students will have a mini clap out drive-through event in their neighborhoods from 4 o'clock to 4:20. So for 20 minutes and 20 seconds, we want to celebrate the seniors within their respective neighborhoods where we know their community knows who they are. and celebrate the fact that they graduated successfully from New Albany High School. We've also extended invitations to other seniors that live in those neighborhoods that may not attend the New Albany Plain Local School District, and have encouraged them within their neighborhood to also participate because they too are graduates of the class of 2020. So we truly want it to become a neighborhood event where all students that are graduating, regardless of the institution, have the opportunity to participate. And I've heard from a few families that actually have gone beyond high school. They're actually adding college graduates. So that's a new twist that we heard today. Hadn't heard that before today. But again, it fits within the mold of celebrating students that are a part of the class of 2020, regardless of the institution that you graduated from.
That's great. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you for the reminder.
Next item.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is in reference to retirements, correct?
Yeah, it's retirement recognition.
Recognitions.
Yeah, so hold on just a second. Let me get up. Ms. Jenkins, you have to share the attachment that's in the agenda if you're not going to let me.
Who's got control here?
You locked it.
We all know.
Hang on, I'm getting it. Can you see it?
Yes. Can you just scroll up to Rick Myers, please? So tonight at our Board of Education meeting, we had anticipated doing a retirement recognition for our faculty and staff within our school district. So the first honoree this evening that I would like to present is Richard Myers. Richard Myers retired from our OPSI association in our school district. He was a custodian that was hired into our school district in September 21st, 1998. His primary assignment through his career was at the middle school and high school. He had 20 years of service with our school district and officially retired on December 31st, 2019. So we account for any person that's retiring from our school district during the current academic year. People often remark that Mr. Myers was an effective, loyal, hardworking custodian, providing many years of quality customer service to faculty, staff, and students. So Rick was at the middle school really for the latter part of his career full time, and he was beloved at the middle school by students, was very active in understanding their life outside of school, the types of activities and events that they participated in, because he related to that as a grandfather. So Rick was a wonderful person, and unfortunately can't be with us this evening to participate in our virtual recognition. We will celebrate them remotely as we look towards the future. The second retiree this evening is Daryl Syker. Daryl Syker is a high school teacher at New Albany High School. He was hired in 2004 as a social studies teacher, became a continuing contract teacher with our school district in 2007. At New Albany High School, he taught modern European history, government and economics, leadership and civic virtue, and for the latter part of the majority of his career, humanities. He also was active in the Ohio Model United Nations as an advisor. Once upon a time, he served as the high school girls golf coach, as well as a middle school baseball coach. He received his bachelor's degree from Muhlenberg College in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and a master's degree from Ohio Dominican College in Columbus. He's described by colleagues as the high school as a lifelong learner and a community activist. He's a member of the American Historical Association and the Ohio Historical Society, and he will officially retire from our school district on May 29th, a week from Friday, after 15 years of service. And again, we wish Mr. Syker and Mr. Myers great success as they journey into the next phase of their life, post New Albany High School and retirement, and what all of that means from our school district. So congratulations to both Rick and to Daryl. Ms. Jenkins, I also need the next attachment.
Uh,
Under superintendent's items, A.
yeah. Ah,
So the next item on the agenda that I want to talk about publicly is the 2020-21 school calendar. And tonight I'm going to publicly announce the intent to go through the Ohio Revised Code process necessary to consider modification to the school calendar, specifically for 2020-2021. And based upon conversations with our school calendar committee and faculty and staff, and looking at professional development opportunities within our school district, as well as feedback that I received generally throughout the entire school year. And this year we were fortunate because we weren't really impacted through 3/4 of the year with what normally happens with calamity or inclement weather. Didn't have major delays to school that then were compounded by the 2-hour delays that are in the school calendar. So publicly tonight, for the board purposes, I'm going to announce that we're going to go through the Ohio Revised Code process to hold a public hearing on June 22nd during your regular scheduled board meeting in June. So a month from now, because there's a 30-day rule requirement for public notice. So we will publicly advertise that we're going to consider a modification to the school calendar. There'll be a public hearing on June 22nd. And the proposed change that I'm recommending is that we eliminate the 4 2-hour delays that were already board approved, specifically for October 21st, November 18th, January 13th, and March 10th, and the calendar for 2020-21, and replace it with 1 full day of in-service for teachers. And I'm placing it on the Monday for the return from winter recess. So Monday, January 4th would become a professional development day for teachers in lieu of the 4 2-hour delays. I think this helps our families immensely for planning purposes, that they don't have 2-hour delays in the morning. We have a scheduled day that I'm tying to winter recess because most of the feedback we receive from families is that when school is going to be out, they like it tied to a holiday period. So this would be tied to winter recess based upon the specific anticipated needs that we will have for professional development that's forecasted for, I hope to be, a normal school year next year. So that is the proposed change. I'm happy to answer any questions from the Board of Education, but tonight's just the announcement that I'm going to start the public process necessary to advertise the proposed change. We would then hold the public hearing at June 22nd's board meeting, and then most likely, pending feedback from either the Board of Education or the community, make a recommendation formally to change the calendar in July before we go to print on everything for the 2020-21 school year. Are there any questions I can answer regarding the school calendar?
Michael, does the professional development day, does that differ relative to the content that would have been covered during the 2-hour sessions?
No, good question, Paul. It's really teacher related. So we do teacher related professional development. We've historically, part of the element's been data. In addition to data analysis based upon like specific map testing or BAS data or other data that's available from ACT, SAT, or other. We also do professional development with teachers that are specific within core content within their content area. So we still anticipate that based upon the windows of when that information becomes available, it'll be timely for this professional development day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any other questions related to this? And again, this is just a public announcement that I'm going to start this process pursuant to Ohio Revised Code to publish the 30-day notice that there will be a public hearing regarding a potential change to the calendar. We have to solicit public input and feedback regarding the elimination of the 4 2-hour delays and replacing with 1 full professional development day instead.
Thank you, Mr. Sawyers. Next on the agenda are a couple of discussion items. First, board liaison reports. Anybody have anything that they wish to report tonight? With nothing, we will move on then to the second discussion item, which is our 5-year forecast, the second reading. And just a reminder, it's the second reading, and we will be taking action on it later in the meeting. Ms. Jenkins.
So I'll take you back to April 27th when I presented the 5-year forecast, and that was before we had any indication, any final indication from the Department of Education on what our reductions would be. So on April 27th, we were projecting a negative $1.6 million ending cash balance, as you can see here. Since April 27th, we have received notice from the Department of Education that not only are they cutting more funding than I expected, they're also doing it sooner. So this forecast had a 10% reduction in state aid starting next school year and then remaining throughout the forecast. What we've found out is that they're actually cutting almost 24% of our funding in the current year, so this year. So the change from April 27th to now is including that reduction in state aid for fiscal 20 and then keeping it at that level throughout the forecast. And the reason that I'm doing that is that I have no guidance. First of all, they cut more than I was expecting them to cut. They cut it sooner. We have no guidance on what could happen next year, though I do expect there to be another reduction in state aid just based on what we're hearing about the economy, what the state's rainy day fund is, where it's at 2.7 billion, but then they expect the revenue shortfall to be twice that. So I expect a reduction. And we've also heard legislators and the governor say that communities like New Albany can afford to educate their own students. So I don't think it's realistic for us to think that we would be one of the districts to be brought back to a normal collection in the future. So I've kept it at that level. I have also reduced next year's casino payments by 40%, which is not a material amount for us, but while we're updating the forecast, I think it's best to include that. All other items remain the same. So if you remember on April 27th, I reported that for next school year, next fiscal year, I've reduced tax collections by 2%. to account for anyone who might not be making their tax payments. I just discussed the two changes in state aid. Income tax sharing, I had reduced by the amount, it's almost 15% from the city of New Albany, and those are their estimates. So I'm using their estimates for that for fiscal 20 and 21, this year and next year. Interest income next year, I've calculated what we already have invested, and I've reduced 50% of this year's for next year, and then an additional 25% in the year after that. Tuition fees, I think I reported at the last meeting that we refunded about $418,000, all funds, over almost 700 refunds that we did. So for the general fund purposes, that's about $350,000 in the current year between refunds and funds that we didn't collect. And that's pay to participate, that's all day K. Those are other items that we've refunded. So reduced fiscal 20 and then just slight increases in 21, 22, 23, because we really don't know what's happening with back to school and sports, et cetera. And then I did increase the Bureau of Workers' Compensation line by $127,253 because we did receive an additional refund from them that we were not expecting. Then in the expenditures, I have not changed anything with that since the April 27th meeting. That includes a reduction in the current year of $151,000 due to attrition and hiring lower than what we expected for the new hires. $129,000 reduction in fringe benefits. Purchase services, we've reduced $150,000, and that's between utilities and community school deductions. Then capital outlay, I've reduced that by $300,000, but increased transfers out by $300,000 because we want to move that money into permanent improvement for capital. So with all of those changes and then adding the new state information that we have, we are now projecting at the end of the 5th year a negative $4.6 million ending cash balance. I will tell you that, and I've said this before, we're going to constantly get new information every day. And so as soon as you approve this, and we have to approve something so that we can, so that I can report it to the Ohio Department of Education. But as soon as you do that, I'm going to have some new information in the next day, the next week, the next couple of months that's going to change this. So I am recommending that we approve this, that the board approves this forecast. I will file it on the assumptions with the state, and then know that Michael and I and his team are going to work throughout the summer to stay up to date on what's happening with federal, state, any of those funding sources, and then what's happening with personnel, fringe benefits, all of our expenditure lines as well. Happy to answer any questions. And normally I wouldn't have a change from April to now, but this is, the state aid cut is significant.
I make a couple comments, please.
Sure.
So I want to reinforce the fact that there's a significant change within the forecast, and we clearly understand that. Becky and I have had extensive conversations related to what we do looking towards the future to mitigate the loss that's now present within the forecast. We're being conservative in that we're not making a recommendation this evening because, to Becky's point, there's a lot of unanswered questions that still have to happen. We have contested to the Ohio Department of Education as well as the governor's office to go to the General Assembly the current methodology for which they use to do the current cuts. We do not agree with it because you're significantly impacting quote unquote wealthier school districts because of the perception that we can afford to pay more. Information came out late last week related to actions that were being considered related to the charter school reductions that are significantly different than what happened on the public school sector side, which we adamantly do not agree with. So we have contested that to the state. And we are actively working with the Alliance for High Quality Education, as we always have, along with 50 plus other school districts through other parts of the state of Ohio that we believe are being disproportionately impacted by the current methodology that they're using to fund schools in the state of Ohio, which we have contested and been very vocal on. And then clearly the impact of what happened specific in this reduction cycle. So there should be some equity that does come into play. We do not believe it's been demonstrated to date in the reductions that are being made and are not in agreement with it. Now, we don't control that outcome, but we are trying to control and influence to tell our story at the state level, along with other school districts through the Alliance, to help hopefully get someone to understand that you just really hit us twice using your same process and disproportionately impacted our school district along with 51, 2 or 3 other schools in the state specifically. With that said, once we get additional information throughout the summer, Becky alluded to the fact that minimally you have to adopt another forecast in October. If there are significant changes that come forward, we would present that in the interim of that. So we can make informed choices, but we will anticipate our charge that is likely forthcoming from the board to try to figure out how to mitigate the loss that's currently being presented within the forecast.
And I want to say a couple things more too. To point out, you can see on this sheet that I'm sharing, in October, we projected a 3.8, almost $3.9 million positive ending cash balance, and would have been on track for that if not for this pandemic and the economic crisis that it has generated. I do also want to say that because we've been so good at really being careful with what we're spending our money on and trying to build, not build balances, but to keep a healthy balance and try to not spend more than we bring in each year, we have a little more time to react. And I think that's important. I will say that because of this economic crisis, we do start to spend more than we bring in this current year, which we were not originally expecting. So just wanted to make those points.
Becky, the numbers you had shared with us regarding the other districts in their in Central Ohio and their state aid cuts, are those still accurate as far as you're aware?
Yes, I don't think that that's been changed. The numbers that came out are the numbers that the districts are being cut.
Yeah, I just think it's worth pointing out, and you mentioned this, I mean, we've been cut nearly 24% on average in Central Ohio, roughly 15 districts. The average cuts are 11%. We're the second largest cut of all those districts impacted. And there's 7 districts out of roughly 15 that have between 0 and 3% that are cut. So it really does seem not appropriate. I mean, we are still going to continue to have the same expenses to educate our kids and pay our teachers and take care of our facilities. That is, we have a COVID impact that is not just, it's impacting all of us equally. And yet, just to be aware, I mean, that's a $4 million plus swing in the 5-year forecast. If you take those 5 years times $865,000. So I just, we went through a levy cycle a few years ago to try to raise $1 million plus, issue 42. And here in one fell swoop, the state is taking away nearly $1 million a year.
It's
Very
$8
disproportionately.
million swing.
I'm sorry?
It's an $8 million swing in our 5-year forecast. It's $4 million just on the reduction in state aid, the outlook on the 5-year forecast. So you mean, you're right about the state aid, but it's an $8 million swing in our 5-year forecast.
Absolutely, Phil. You're right. 8 million total swing when you take into account all of this, but the state aid impact alone exactly is more than 4 million of it.
Sorry, didn't mean to step on you there.
No, you're absolutely right to point that out, because we have an $8 million swing in the span of a month. But I just point this out, and if you are interested in getting involved with your state legislator, this is an issue that is impacting us significantly, despite our attempts to be very mindful of our ongoing expenses.
The other thing, Paul, beyond that, that's huge. But if you look at what the state, what the formula was before they held everyone flat, there was already a wealth index factored into that formula. Then they held everyone steady. Then we've also got another wealth factor when they look at these cuts. That was part of what they looked at. And I still haven't seen a written methodology, but I do know in conversations and meetings I've been in that wealth was, so you're being hit twice for wealth. Then if you look at the money that the districts are getting from the CARES Act, we will receive about $262,000. So a little bit of an offset. There are some districts in the state who actually get more CARES Act money than was cut by them. So they're actually gaining revenue, which is another, did anyone look at that before they decided to make the cuts that they made to districts from state foundation? And I would say probably not.
And we have no idea if our contesting this is going to make an impact or not, but we want our public to understand that clearly we don't agree with this and it's wrong that we were disproportionately cut. Paul, to your point, Arlington is the only other school district at 52%. So they were the largest cut in Franklin County, 52% reduction. Ours is 24. Many of their school districts go to single digits, dominantly between 0 and 3%. And to Becky's point, it's wrong when you look at our neighboring county, Licking County, there's actually school districts that ended up being profited because of the CARES Act. So that disproportionality should have been something considered in the methodology that basically effectuated the cuts from the state level. So we don't contest the fact that the cuts had to occur and that over $300 million is probably the responsibility of K through 12 based upon the entire state budget. However, the method by which they elected to cut that amount from each school district was not done proportionally, or in our estimate, in a fair manner.
Well, and never mind the fact that we already were grossly underfunded as it relates to the comparison, even amongst some of the private schools in our neighborhood. So we're cut multiple times from the state as it relates to the funding that we should be getting. And actually, in this case, we might be actually lucky, considering the fact that the fiscal responsibility, the things that you all have done to kind of, keep us going the way we have been going. Had this been an even deeper cut from the state, it could have been pretty catastrophic. So here we are again getting punished for being a good school district, being a district that, can be considered wealthy, whatever you want to call it. But it is a testament, though, to the work of this board that we're not seeing bigger drops. So thank you, Becky, for the work that you've been doing.
Yeah, I'd like to chime in on that because Becky, mentioned it, but it bears repeating that we can argue and complain about the reduction in state aid, and we can and should certainly lobby our elected representatives to change it. But the fact is that we did what needed to be done all along. This board acted together with the administration over the last 4 years to put in place a sustainable budget and to keep on that very same path every single year, every budgeting cycle, to focus on ways of reducing unnecessary expense, to focus on being more efficient in how we educated kids, while at the same time producing better outcomes for kids. I mean, it's because of all the work that the administration has done, the staff has done, to make sure that we were managing as though a crisis could come. It's not that we knew this crisis was coming, because nobody knew this crisis was coming, but a crisis was coming. And,
Hey guys.
and we took the steps necessary to avoid the boom and bust cycles that so many other districts face. So we addressed the issue squarely for the last 4 years.
Becky, could you speak to the thinking behind the reduction in 15% income tax sharing reduction with the city?
So just as background, several of the abated and TIFT areas around the city, that we have an income tax sharing agreement with the city. And so they share a portion of their income tax with us to help offset any of the abatements or the TIFT areas. They actually sent that's their estimate that they're looking at, that they think that they will be reduced in their collection. And that's completely related to the unemployment that you see happening. Retail was shut down. And if you think about what's in our, business campus here in the beauty campus, it's pretty much all retail. So if those places are shut down, retail's not making as much money, therefore they're not paying the income tax. And so we're not going to see that income tax collection.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. We have 3 board action items tonight. 2 of them are employment contracts. The third is a reaffirmation of action items from our April 27th board meeting. And just a quick note on that, if you recall, there was an issue with some people being able to access the meeting. And so making sure that, there isn't any issue there with people having concerns about being able to access. We just wanted to bring all these items back up for affirmation. So item C on that board action items are all things that have already been approved by the board. First, we have A and B, 6A and B, the employment of Superintendent Sawyer's contract, and also the contract for the employment of Treasurer Jenkins. Just a couple of quick comments, and then I'll open it up. And it's really good that it comes in right following the discussion of the 5-year forecast. Obviously, we are in a unique moment in our history, and as part of that, we're seeing economic devastation all over the place. We're seeing it right here in our own community. We're seeing it in our own forecast, and I just want to acknowledge both Michael and Becky and their contracts tonight. First of all, these are contracts that need to be renewed because of an expiration date. Their contracts are both expiring at the end of June. And so It's just part of the 2-year cycle that we do with our administrators and making sure that they're employed. So this was the timing for this is such that it needed to be done. And the two things I just want to point out about these contracts: first, base salary, no increase at all for Michael and Becky. So they will continue to be working under the previous contract base salary, and also any of the performance compensation that is included in their contract. And their performance compensation can go up to about 18.5% of their base salary, all based on performance benchmarks that the board sets for them, and mainly the result of fiscal responsibility and student achievement, the two things that we really care about. And so that's a nice number. It's also all at risk, and that number stays the same in this contract as well. So in this time of economic uncertainty, when surely I'm sure that members of this board probably think that, and probably members of the community too, think that both Michael and Becky would be deserving of more in a different economic situation. We are employing them again tonight for another 2 years at basically the same dollar amounts as the contracts they're currently under. So I wanted to make sure that that was public, and I'll open the floor for any members who want to comment.
I'll be happy to chime in here. These are challenging times, and really in concert with the comment about the management that the two of you have done with regard to the budget over the last several years. It is a mark of leadership to recognize when your constituents, your community is struggling, and that leadership is necessary. Leadership is required all the time. But when a quarter of the state's workers are unemployed, over 1 million Ohioans are unemployed, certainly hundreds, if not thousands, within our own school district community are in the same boat. This wasn't something that we had to ask for. This was something that Michael and Becky recognized, and they put it forth. They're the ones who said this is the right thing to do. And to John's point, had things not fallen apart in February, given the work that Michael and Becky had done, we would absolutely be it would be well worth increasing their compensation. But when things are as they are, sometimes leadership demands sacrifice. And just like most of us in our businesses and in our work are having to make sacrifices in our comp, even if we're working more than we were, it's just a mark of great leadership and a respect for the community. And I am personally grateful to Michael and Becky for what you're doing.
If there aren't any other comments, I do need a motion for board items 6A through C.
Hey, John, I just want to quickly comment. Again, I just also want to say thank you to Michael and Becky. Again, as has been said, achieving along with our teaching staff and our administrative leaders better outcomes with a sustainable budget in place. And as has been said, we didn't expect to be here 8 weeks ago in this situation. Nobody wants to be in this financial situation as a school district or as a local economy or national global economy, but it is where we find ourselves. So again, we do appreciate you coming to us, helping to sustain financial restraint in these challenging times. And again, I know it's as you say many times, Michael, it's about the kids. And I have full confidence that despite the sacrifice that you've put forward, that you'll continue to do all you can for our kids in this district moving forward. So again, I can't thank you enough for leading us through challenging times here.
Yep, thanks.
I'd like to jump in and just echo what everyone else is saying. And in lieu of an increase tonight, just want to make sure you both know and I know I speak for the whole board in saying, we feel so fortunate to have this team, both of you, leading us through this crisis. I know you've heard from a lot of parents who are so grateful for your leadership, and I just want to share my gratitude that I know the endless hours you both have put into keeping things afloat and trying to turn lemonade out of lemons. And I think you are keeping us in a really positive place, and you've always put students first, and we feel it every day, even from our homes. So want to recognize the incredible leadership you guys have both provided us through this even more challenging time than we've ever expected.
Well, and obviously I'll just jump into, as always, you guys say it all. But yeah, that's where I was going to go also, Debbie, was just, all the things that go on behind the scenes are often not acknowledged. And in a time like this right now, with everything going on, all the uncertainties due to COVID, I don't think many people really have a true appreciation for what Becky and Michael are doing behind the scenes for our district, for our community. They've truly stepped up as leaders, not surprising to any of us on the board. We know that's who they are. So huge, warm, heartfelt thank you to you both.
Thanks, everyone. Mike, since I still see you on my screen, would you mind making the motion?
So moved.
All right. There's a motion from Mr. Bush. A second, please.
Second.
Ms. Kalinowski. Can we have a roll call?
Mr. Bush,
Yes.
Ms. Kalinowski,
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff,
Yes.
Vice President Darrow,
Yes.
President McClelland.
Yes. Now to treasurer's items A and B, including the 5-year forecast. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Is that Mr. Newmoff?
Yes.
Okay, a second.
Second.
Mr. Bush. Jenkins.
You. Trying to pull that up here. Okay, so the monthly financial report, you can see with our revenue, we have finished our collections. We were about $136,000 under collected, but still materially on plan at a 0.3% variance. Income tax sharing, we were actually ahead of what we expected. So we'll see what happens in the coming months and that's the income tax sharing with the city. We'll see what happens with their collections as they're a little bit behind. So maybe we'll get to break even, and that'll be some good news. Unrestricted grants and aid are the foundation payments from the state. That's gonna change, I know, just because I know that they're gonna take money back. And just to note too, we actually have already received almost all of our payments. There are only 3 payments left in the fiscal year. So we'll actually probably have to write a check back to the state for some of the money they've already given us. Overall, we're at $376,000 over what we had anticipated. So really within expectations. And then you can see each of the areas in personnel, retirement. All of our expenditures are under, which we've been reporting on all along, and they're just they continue to grow. Those are the areas that we've expected some reductions in. And then again, I do expect some of those to change as well. We don't have overtime right now because we don't have field trips. Utilities probably will be less than what we expected because we also don't have horrible weather. So I do expect that to get a little bit better as well. And then the other item is just the 5-year forecast.
So any additional questions for Ms. Jenkins? If not, we'll take the roll call, please.
Mr. Newmoff,
Yes.
Mr. Bush,
Yes.
Ms. Kalinowski,
Yes.
Vice President Darrow,
Yes.
President McClelland.
Yes. Last agenda items tonight are superintendent's items. So could I have a motion, please, on superintendent's items A through C?
So moved.
Mr. Newmoff, in the second.
Second.
Ms. Kalinowski. Mr. Sawyers.
Thank you, President McClellan, members of the Board of Education. We'll start with letter A this evening for personnel. As you will recall, spring brings many personnel action items to the Board of Education for renewal purposes based upon collective bargaining agreements and or statutory provisions under Ohio Revised Code. So we begin this evening under personnel with recommendations for administrative contracts. First is to accept the formal resignation for retirement of Donna LeBeau as middle school principal, but breathe because in a couple action items, we're going to rehire her. Donna is an incredible middle school principal, and I would be remiss to not publicly acknowledge that on a daily basis within our school district. We're very grateful for her student first attitude that she puts in place every single day. Every breath she takes is basically for kids at the middle school. And she's an incredible middle school principal. And although she's eligible for retirement pursuant to the state teachers retirement system rules and regs in the state of Ohio, she is able to continue to work. She is going to be gone for 24 hours from our school district, which is the minimum amount of time that she's allowed to be gone from our school district to officially retire. She is coming back. She's not sitting out the 60-day window. She will forego 2 months of retirement eligibility with the state of Ohio because she's coming back to work immediately to start the 2020-21 school year. So Donna will be back in the school district. In addition to that, the agenda this evening also includes recommendations for 2-year administrative contract renewals for 20 other administrators within our school district. I'm very fortunate that we are blessed as a school district to have an incredible leadership team. The majority of our hiring happened in a specific year. That's why the majority, 20 of the 34 administrators, are actually on tonight's contract agenda for contract renewals. But we are very, very fortunate to have an incredible leadership team across our entire pre-K through 12 organization. They help this place run on a daily basis to do what I expect to be done, to basically put students first and create outcomes that benefit students in academic achievement and fiscal responsibility, as well as clearly the relationships that we need with faculty, staff, and parents across our school district. So I'm very happy to recommend all 20 plus Donna, 21 administrators that are in the personnel section tonight for continued employment within our school district because their contracts are currently expiring. Number 4 this evening is the renewal of contracts for classified non-teaching staff. This is statutory based upon the expiration of their current contracts no later than June 30th, 2020. So we anticipate hiring them again clearly for 2020-21. Pending any additional information that's learned related to whatever changes for next year. But currently, to meet statutory provisions, they move forward with recommendations for renewal. Number 5 are the renewals of contracts for certified staff. This is our teaching force across the school district that are currently on limited contract and or eligibility for continuing contract. So we have teachers that did fulfill the statutory requirement to go through the process with Mrs. Lofton and I to earn a continuing contract. And I'm very happy to recommend them to the Board of Education this evening. They are rock star teachers within our school district. They are shining examples every single day of what's great for kids in classrooms. And we willingly recommend them for continuing contract status based upon their eligibility now under Ohio Revised Code. Number 6 is the renewal of the contracts for the 1,400 exempt staff. So these persons are non-bargaining unit, confidential employees within our school district assigned to administrators or work in specific job locations that require confidentiality. So they're 1,400 exempt by law because they're not part of the bargaining unit. So again, wonderful people doing great job, great work every single day that are focused on kids. And I strongly recommend that we move forward with the renewal of their contracts to continue their employment with our school district. There's a few amendments and or extension for ESY school year services that we approve also in May in anticipation of specific services that are provided to students with special needs. Those are also outlined under the personnel section. We've continued to fill vacancies for the 2020-21 school year based upon student-specific needs and retirements for classrooms within our school districts, and they also appear as well as stipends for summer work specifically related to credit recovery, courses for students at our high school, and coordination of specific summer academy work that would happen for students with special needs. That concludes the personnel section for this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Michael, would you take just a minute to explain the retire rehire doesn't cost the district any extra money?
Right, so Mrs. LeBeau statutorily has earned the right to retire in the state of Ohio from the state teachers retirement system. I'm basically recommending that that be permitted to happen. There's a provision in Ohio Revised Code that she can choose to continue to work post-retirement. It becomes a public process in the state of Ohio if the administrator or classroom teacher, because it also applies to classroom teachers as well as administrators, retire from the school district and choose to be rehired into the same school district in the same position. So when that occurs, she's retiring as today a principal, effective at the end of July. She's returning at the end on August 1st as a principal. So because she's vacating and rehiring into the same position, we have to go through a public process. If Mrs. LeBeau hypothetically had retired from Columbus City Schools and we hired her in New Albany, we would not be doing this public process. This only happens in Ohio Revised Code when a person is publicly retired, rehired in the same position in the same school district. Her salary and terms and conditions of employment are remaining the same. She no longer becomes eligible for severance pay in the future because that's a statutory provision that's paid out upon initial retirement in accordance with board policy. So there's no additional cost to the school district. We're just going to continue to pay her her regular rate of pay because she is retire, rehire. President McClellan, I skipped one section on the agenda and I need to go back to it. So it's under B for general business. I just want to make a couple comments about it specifically beyond personnel. So letter B this evening specifically recommends the graduating class of 2020. So we have 384 graduates that are eligible pending certification that will occur this week. We're actively working to get every kid across the finish line. We have a few people that we still need to get some things done with before Friday so that we can certify them that they've met the graduation requirements within the state of Ohio. But we're confident and hopeful that all of them will make it. Number 4 under personnel this evening is also significant. So in addition to me speaking about the administrative contracts, which also include a zero-based increase, so we're not increasing administrative costs for any administrators within our school district. The one provision in the administrative contracts that I did change was to recommend a $1,500 potential increase in performance pay eligibility for administrators should they become eligible based upon successful completion of the 3 goals that would be assigned to them. I did this to provide some equity in understanding that our teachers in our school district have steps that are earned based upon an annual completion of a school year. So teacher salary schedule includes steps that are worth 2.5% of the teacher's salary. So they get 2.5% increase annually. I did not apply that to the administrators given the current state of the economy and the unknowns of what's happening with COVID-19 in our forecast. In lieu of that, I did add a provision that if they successfully complete their performance goals, they would be eligible for a $1,500 stipend. Number 4 for this evening under general business is similar action from OPSI Local 303. So I was approached a week ago today by OPSI President and Vice President. OPSI's President is Laura Hartley. The Vice President is Nitzan Israel. They are both bus drivers within our school district, and they approached me as the superintendent asking, because we were supposed to negotiate in April, and clearly that could not happen because of COVID-19, if it would be possible to try to work out a memorandum of agreement to extend the current contract for OPSI for one additional school year. And rather than expiring June 30th, 2020, allow it to expire June 30th, 2021. And in doing so, they requested a 0% base increase, honestly in gratitude and also in anticipation of the unknown of the future. So pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, we have continued to pay all of our employees in the school district during COVID-19 as a statutory requirement. We provided professional development to specific job classifications that were not directly involved in daily remote learning requirements for students. Our non-teaching faculty or non-teaching staff has been extremely grateful for that when they have not been able to be on the school campus directly in a small group doing specific work. They were doing professional development at home. OPSI are hourly employees within our school district. So that's this bargaining unit. That's who they represent. Our bus drivers, secretaries, our custodians, et cetera, that work daily on the behalf of students. OPSI approached me a week ago Monday and asked for an MOU to basically extend their contract for 1 year at a 0% increase as far as base salary to basically freeze people's salaries in lieu of the potential of a step. So they do step. OPSI steps are worth 13 cents to up to $1 plus change each year based upon where they're at in the salary schedule. So it's nominal increases that are applied based upon a year of experience up to 15 steps on their salary schedule. In addition to that, they asked for some minor changes and specific language associated to their contract, or what I call housekeeping items that we had already agreed to in memorandums of understanding during the term of this current contract. So that MOU is attached to tonight's agenda for board action and consideration to extend the OPSI contract for an additional year, again with a 0% base increase. The last item this evening for superintendent items is donations, letter C. As always, we are extremely grateful for the philanthropy that exists within our entire school community. I do want to call specific attention to two things that are on tonight's donations. We did receive the first check from the primary school PTO in relationship to their Ninja Challenge activities that they did at the end of the school year, well, before we left in March. Between January and March, the Ninja Challenge activities to basically fundraise for offset to specific play equipment that was requested by kids for the playground enhancement we're doing this summer. So tonight's agenda includes the primary school PTO donation of $37,880.27 towards that work based upon fundraising that was done by our students. And then donated back to their playground that they get to use every single day. So we're extremely grateful to the primary school PTO. I will tell you that there's also other donations coming from other PTOs. It's just a matter of when the check is received and which board agenda it actually gets put on based upon the month of the receipt. So I anticipate in June, you will see another receipt from May for another donation from a different building related to the playground. In addition to that, we're very grateful to our Eagle backers and some baseball parents, specifically for New Albany High School. And although their spring sports season was canceled for baseball, they had aspirations of working with the school district to install an outdoor storage facility, is what I'm allowed to call it, in accordance with ARB. That will serve as an opportunity to have announcing done from that storage facility on the second floor for baseball games. So our baseball parents and Eagle backers worked collaboratively to fundraise specifically for that. And the majority of the cost was borne by them and not by the school district. So we did supplant the project to get it across the finish line. But again, we're very grateful for everything they did to support it because it will benefit clearly the baseball teams for future years to come. Happy to answer any questions you have about the superintendent's items in A, B, or C this evening.
I'd like to comment about the OPSI contract, similar to my comments regarding you and Becky, Michael. You know, public employees often catch a lot of grief from the public for not, you know, for perceptions of not doing the right thing. And first off, our OPSI employees, you know, our bus drivers, our cafeteria workers, the janitors, the people, custodians, the folks that make sure kids get to school, make sure they're fed, make sure that the buildings are clean. and well maintained. They are an integral part of our district. In their last contract, when we made sure that they were included in the performance pay component because and that it's tied to academic achievement because they make a difference for kids. You know, the simple fact that they came to you, that their leadership came to you and asked to extend their contract for a year with no increase is really a testament to their commitment to the community as well. I'd say I was surprised, except, you know, I've spoken with quite a few of their members over the years in various meetings, and knowing them, you know, as people, I'm really not surprised. But it's still, it really is a very strong statement of their commitment to the community, just as your and Becky's was. So I am grateful to them as well and to their leadership for stepping up and doing that.
I'm going to jump in and again, thank the OPC members as well. We really appreciate all they do every day to take care of our facilities and take care of our kids, and stepping up and being part of the solution in a time of financial crises. So thank you for all you have done and will do for us in the future. Also, some other good news in your report there, Michael. I mean, the primary school PTO, thank you. That's a lot of moms and dads and guardians and everybody who cares about kids working together to raise a lot of money for a playground that our kids are going to enjoy for years to come. So thank you. And now I can get my third grader to stop asking me for money. But no, you guys did a great job with that. Thank you very much. And then again, I can't go without saying that so many families jumped in on that baseball facility that will be the nicest storage facility, I guarantee you, in many parts. Well, it's a very nice storage facility that is going to be a nice piece of the community to really enhance our baseball diamond. And it's just a shame we couldn't play on it this year, but it'll be look forward to be a community asset for many years. So thank you. I'll just call out, probably shouldn't do this, but I know the Fee family was very engaged in that, very impactful, along with many others. And I'll stop with them because I'll leave too many out. But thank you to the community stepping up and helping with a public school, but really private citizens coming forward and helping our assets improve moving forward. So again, thank you everyone for 3 pieces of good news there on a rainy Monday afternoon.
Yeah, I just want to say all of these efforts have helped the school district in different ways. And it's just a reminder of how special our employees in the district are, our families, our PTO members. We truly are all in this together. And that is really felt by all of these different contributions. So a big thank you from me as well.
Yep, and I'll jump in here too. And you know, it wasn't planned, it's by accident, but I think it was a great way for us to kind of get to the end of the meeting and wrap up on a high note, you know, just during a couple rough months. So, you know, there's a great way to just really recognize all the value-rich people that are supporting our community, and a big thank you to OPC.
Yeah, so again, really appreciate the commitment of the families in this district to be supportive of us. I mean, obviously, we talked about a little bit earlier about how we don't really get any help from anyone outside of our community to fund our schools. And so you put a lot in initially, and then you continue to put in support of our kids. And that's not just the parents. I mean, there are members of Eagle backers that are not parents in this community. And so we just really thank everyone, this entire community, for the support that you give our schools. OPC, thank you. You know, that's sometimes the thankless job. I'm the son of a bus driver, so I know how crazy it can get on a bus and loud and all that stuff. But you know, these people are so vital to the education of our kids. They're the ones that pick them up first. And as Phil mentioned, they're the ones that make sure they're fed. They're the ones that make sure that the place is ready to go in the morning and cleaned up at night. And so we just couldn't thank you enough for your engagement and support of our kids too, and your willingness to, put the students first when it came to your contract. And so we really appreciate that. And then Michael and Becky, great leadership in our district, but Michael has also put together a fabulous team of administrators all throughout the district and all of these buildings. And just so, really appreciate the fact that we can have them on for another couple of years. And again, sharing in this time of economic need and taking all these contracts with the zeros on their base, and no change in their performance other than what that small thing that Michael mentioned. And again, that performance is at risk based on the academic achievement of our kids, which is why they all choose to be here, because we put students first here. And so really excited to have the team together, really excited to have everybody working together over the summer and getting us ready for the fall. And so just lots of thanks all around. It's a nice way to kind of end 2020, right? So without any other comments or questions, I will take the roll call.
Just hey, real quick.
Go ahead, yeah.
Sorry, just a quick shout out to Andy Moore, the teacher in the Fab Lab in the middle school. He and I have been working together over the last week on a little project for the seniors, and so I just want to say thanks to him. It was I spent about 3 hours with him in the Fab Lab, and we ended up having a really nice chat. And it was great to have some one-on-one time with him, and it was great. That's all. Just want to shout out.
Is your project complete?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, hey, and you know what? And it should go without saying, as we wrap up this last week of school, thank you to the teachers for making all the adjustments that we've asked you to make, and to make sure that our kids finish the year strong as well. So when I talk about team effort, it's a team effort. So any other comments or questions before we take the roll call? Roll call, please.
Mr. Newmoff,
Yes.
Ms. Kalinowski,
Yes.
Mr. Bush,
Yes.
Vice President Darrow,
Yes.
President McClelland.
Yes. That brings us to the end of our meeting. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Mr. Darrow, second.
Second.
Ms. Kalinowski. Roll call, please.
Vice President Darrow,
Yes.
Ms. Kalinowski,
Yes.
Mr. Bush,
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff,
Yes.
President McClelland.
Yes. We are adjourned. Our next meeting is scheduled for June 8th. And if we're lucky, it might actually be in person. Thank you all for watching tonight.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.